Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good evening, depending upon where you are. Morning for me, evening for Jerry, and welcome to another episode of the GenPool Spotlight, where we go deep into all things EOSIO. And on this episode, we'll be interviewing and talking about, well, you, Jerry, and also mostly EOS Detroit. So, how are you?
Good, man. I have to make a confession. I've never watched one of these episodes, so um, this is gonna be good. I actually like going into stuff like this without knowing, previously.
Well, I mean, to be fair, usually we do the written report, like the write up for
Hmm.
these, but we decided to change it up about maybe a month and a half or 2 months ago because we wanted to do one with M Blue about uplift art and all the things that were going on over there. So
Nice.
that was the first episode. The second episode was actually also with M Blue because we didn't finish because there was so much going on. So actually, this is actually the first episode where we have actually done a video podcast with a BP.
Oh,
So
okay.
right, so you can
Cool.
break that one
I
in.
feel honored, man. I'm. That's what's up,
uh,
man.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
honestly, like we've shared the stream a few times before. I didn't really know about you until
Okay.
until we shared the stream.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe about a month and a half ago.
I don't know
And
much about myself either. I'm still figuring that out.
fair
it's a
enough,
it's a
fair
it's an
enough.
ongoing process, man.
But I had a really good time on that live stream. We did the first
I did too.
BP kind of roundtable over on the Crypto Writer channel. And I was just like, wow, this guy's a really interesting person. So I talked to the team and I'm like, why don't we bring him on for like a GenPool Spotlight, like online? Like that'll be good. So,
Yeah, I'm
but
glad to
yeah,
be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, let's talk, man.
cool.
I normally do these. I call them kicking it sessions. So it's just a conversation, you know. I just like having conversations, conversing with people, and yeah, that's what I love doing. So should be fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I like doing too. I mean, I know you have your own channel. Maybe you want to start by talking about that a little bit. Like, what
Sure.
kind of content do you do? What kind of things do you cover? And I guess after, like, how did you get to be a part of EOS Detroit and where you are now?
Cool. Yeah. So started the CBTV channel on YouTube in 2017. Literally was a fluke, man. I remember I had a Gmail account called Crypto Blood that I had created in 2014. I didn't want to post this video that I was so ecstatic about. I was finally getting my dad into cryptos, and I just wanted to let the world know. I'm like, I don't want to put it under my business YouTube account because I have a web development company. So I'm like, let me. I'm like, oh, I forgot. I got this crypto blood at gmail.com account. I'll just upload it there. So I uploaded. It was a car video, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to finally set up my dad on Coinbase. He's finally going to put some money into cryptos. I've been telling him about it since 2014. Blah blah blah, and so it just kind of happened out of that. Did one video, got a little response. Did another in car video, and this one gentleman called Cliff High, he's into the woo woo stuff, like real like UFO, like that's really his lane. I follow him. I follow him at that time, big time. He commented and tweeted my video to his audience of like, I don't know, he had like 60,000 followers at that point on Twitter. I wasn't even on Twitter. That's how like underdeveloped this crypto blood brand was. I was just so I'm getting all of these like messages like, "Hey man, Cliff High tweeted your video." I'm like, "Oh shit, I need to go create a crypto blood Twitter account really quickly." So I did that, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And started doing daily, um, like crypto news updates. And it was like, I don't like doing those, oh, like, having my face like $50,000 Bitcoin on the way, and the rockets and the ships and space. I'm not into that, pulling people's strings and the whole emotional thing. So I'm really just straightforward, just giving people high level content or content about crypto on a high level, on a more macro level, so that they can kind of understand which way and how to navigate their portfolios without all the extra stuff.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean. Like it's always interesting for me to hear how people got into it because like I'm personally like I'm a writer. I was always behind the scenes doing like a bunch of stuff for various projects. Like wasn't quite vocal about it because like I like to promote the projects that I like and I don't like to have people attack me for it. And as bizarre as that sounds, like when you're actually working with like 3 or 4 different projects at a time, it's kind of difficult to keep your personal viewpoints away from all of those projects so that the whole thing doesn't just like collide and turn into like this giant sinkhole of negativity, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I always tried to like play things like behind the scenes. And then I started doing, weekly kind of updates. Like you say, I was writing articles and Corey and I would jump online and we would go through them on our EOSIO weekly update. And so very similar thing. It's kind of like we would get on there and then we would just be like, okay, this is the news and this is our take, right? Like it's just us. We're not affiliated with any projects. I mean, we were kind of, but this is our personal opinion. And so like, I'm kind of the same way. It's not like, oh, bullish is coming. And we still do that to this day, right? It's like bullish is coming. We hope that they do well. Right. We have reason to believe that maybe we shouldn't get so excited and we hope that we're wrong. That's kind of how we are, right? And so I really respect that. I respect the idea that like, you come in this space with people in mind that you want to talk to, that you want to gather around, that you want to like cover, and you just want to do it for you. And not necessarily, to get the hits, the likes, the reactions. So I really respect that.
Yep, exactly. And it's funny because I have been a strong supporter of EOS before mainnet even launched, like when the ICO was going on for that whole year. And I got a lot of flack for being a supporter of EOS. Of course, you probably know it's like the black sheep of the crypto family. But I looked at it from a technical standpoint. I have I'm not like a blockchain coder or anything, but I do have a technical background. So I just looked at, the white paper and what they were, looking to roll out. I'm like, this is going to be great at some point down the road. And it's funny because I don't talk too much about EOS on my channel. And it's probably more because I don't want to come off as looking like a shiller, a shill of EOS. But I'm a huge supporter of it, and I try to keep it an unbiased type of channel or lane of communications with my audience. So I talk about all types of news that's going on. Really, never anything too specific, project specific. It's more macro. What's going on, what is Visa doing, or some of the sovereign nations, what are they doing with the CBDCs and all that stuff. So I do keep it at a high level on purpose, to be honest with you. And it's not as popular, but it's an outlet for me. I love doing it. I haven't been able to do it as much lately since joining EOS Detroit, but yeah, I love doing it, man.
I mean, the FUD for EOS seems to have died down a little bit in the last few months, which is good. It's kind of nice. By the way, do you like my background music here? I'm on the 11th floor, but these mics are so good. You have the same one. These mics are so good that you can hear the cicadas from the ground floor in the summer.
Really cicadas?
Yeah, that's the cicadas. That's the chirp.
We had a bad wave of them in a small city here in Ann Arbor. It was like almost like apocalyptic.
That's
every 14 years, 7 or 14.
No, over here they're here every year.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I thought it was a cadence of like 7 years or something.
No. Over here they're here every year because our climate's a little bit different, right? It's kind of it's super humid here in the summer, although maybe not as bad as the heat waves that you guys have been having.
Right.
Back stateside, but yeah. So I, like one of the things that you said to me earlier was that you loved Dan's. So I'm gonna make you break your own rule or your own preference, I guess, for today's episode because this is all about EOS Detroit.
I'm good with that. I was expecting
So
that.
you love the vision of Dan from the beginning, and you were following him from the days of like Steam and the
Yes.
potential of DPoS
Hmm.
and what was it about Dan's vision that you loved? And I kind of want to take that a step further. What is it about that vision that you still are on board with, right? Because a lot's changed even in the last year, right? Dan leaving Block One, porting towards the more uh, kind
Community
of
kind of.
community
Hmm.
centric kind of area. So like obviously you're still in you're still in EOS after Dan left. But what was it about that original vision that pulled you in? And what is it about Dan's vision now that maybe you like or dislike? Go either way.
It's
That's
funny.
it's
It
up to
kind
you.
of is full circle. I was caught and hooked on Dan. Literally when so I knew he had was a big reason for Steam and that whole platform. I wasn't really following him or even active on the BitShares in the BitShares days, but I saw a video, an interview with Dan and Jeff Burrick, Dollar Vigilante. When I saw that video and saw how I don't think he calls himself an anarchist, but his political viewpoint was intriguing and really I loved it, man. I fell in love with his style then. I said, okay, this guy is really about it. He's not about the money. He's about really trying to change social structures via technology, and that was it, man. I really fell in love with his vision at that point after that interview. I don't know if you saw that. His first, I think he did a couple of interviews with Jeff Barrick, but the first one he attended appeared on Dollar Vigilante was it. So it's just funny now he's now doing the Eden Project, and that kind of falls in line still with changing how we do government, how we do just social structures and everything. Doing that, I think, is really pushing the envelope and is a very good way to use and leverage blockchain technologies.
Yeah, and I mean, what a time for it too, right? Like, wasn't it just maybe a week ago? Is my guess. It could have been a little bit longer. I get a little bit, jaded when it comes to crypto time. But Wyoming just passed basically a bill that now allows for DAOs to become, actual recognized entities in the government, and that's the whole system basically is based off of EOS. And when they were talking about it, they were kind of saying like, it probably wouldn't be possible to do something like this on Ethereum or some of these other blockchains. But just the fact that like it is EOS and now Dan coming out with, Eden on EOS and just recently his book and his whole idea for blockchain in general with the DPoS from early days, it just kind of makes sense to me that would, port in there. So
Yeah,
so like, what's your idea about the DAOs and the governmental entities? Because I kind of like it. Like, I like the fact that now you kind of get a 3-year leeway to be able to say, okay, we're doing something new that laws don't exist, and you're not going to lock us up if we screw up. But then you decide to change the game after. Like, I kind of like that side of it, right?
yeah, the crypto Fed DAO. It's great, man. I mention that on your stream last Friday, I believe, or Thursday, whichever day I was on your channel. It's a watershed moment. I think it didn't get as much attention as it should have, of course, because it seems like EO stuff never gets the type of attention it deserves. That's a whole nother conversation, but watershed moment in crypto for sure, and we'll see more of this. But you gotta like people have to be not be as jaded with their outcomes or potential outcomes from these types of things. There are going to be some pushback by governments, and we're so early. We haven't seen a lot of the heads colliding, and I think that's to come. But at least we're building a basis now with this type of move. This is great, man. I hope to see more of this.
Yeah, and like you said, like there's a lot of sentiment in the space in general that is not really looked at from the right perspective in my mind. Like the imagine the University of Crypto and how bad of an institution that would be, right? Because like everyone would walk into one class and just be like, hey, what are you doing here, man? Like, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be over in that building. That's the EOS building. You're not allowed to come in here and talk your stuff, right? Like it would be like this giant collection of like, pre-civilized madness, essentially, where people were all buying into this idea of what the one true, I'm going to get myself in trouble here, what the one true God was. And like they become like completely irrational about like these certain things, right? Yeah, Ethereum's got a lot of traction and it's great for some things. And I'm not wishing, Ethereum to like go down the tubes and totally block out, right? Like I think what Vitalik and some of these other people have brought to the space is really amazing. But the fact that like this is the be all end all and no other blockchain is ever going to catch, never mind even like come close to comparable, right? Or on the flip side of that, like you said, EOS being the black sheep, a lot of people didn't really like Dan for certain reasons, and it's sometimes hard not to blame them, but at the same time, like he's in it for what he believes is the right reasons, and so like I think that it's really
intention, right? And I assess and look at intention. I think Dan's intentions are good. Has he made mistakes? For sure, we all have, right? So, but you have to assess it from what's the person's intention, and his intent to me is pretty damn good, and that's what intrigues me about his vision. One thing, like you said, with Ethereum, in technology, if you take a look at, just go back in history, usually first mover advantage is not the winner. The person, the technology or the company that brings a certain technology to an industry is typically not the winner in the end. You zoom out 10, 15 years, 20 years, that company or technology stack is probably not here. I mean, people like to compare TCP IP and that protocol and how we still use, what is it, IP4 or whatever. Yeah, but I don't really compare Ethereum to that. I think there are going to be many blockchains that surpass Ethereum in the future. Is it EOS or is it one of the EOSIO blockchains? I believe so. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, or like, is it a combination of different things, right? Like,
sure.
EOS has got some potential when it comes to like certain aspects like finance. I mean, will they ever catch something like Wax when it comes to NFTs? I mean, it's possible, but there's no guarantee, right?
No.
I would say one thing though, like I think generally speaking, you're right. Like generally speaking, that is kind of the way of the world. But there is one example that proves us wrong. So there is one example that we could quote that might, just keep Ethereum on top forever. And I hope that that's not the world that we live in. Not because I have anything against Ethereum. I just don't want to be stuck using QWERTY keyboard my whole life when there's something else that's more efficient, but they just didn't bring it to us because it was too difficult for us to learn something new. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the state that we seem to be in right now with modern finance and traditional business and things like this, right? Like, so I wanted to ask you, like, because to me, the onboarding for EOS, if you're coming from another blockchain, like it's a mess. If you look at something like what happened to Wax or even some of these other EOSIO blockchains, but onboarding into crypto in general is a mess, right? Like what I like about EOS is like, if I send you some tokens and I have your address wrong, those tokens aren't gone. They don't get sent, right? Like this seems to be, to me, to be a no-brainer. And like a lot of crypto people will be like, well, if you can't get the address right, then you don't belong in crypto. Well, yeah, maybe.
Scale that up to billions of people and then
right?
Let's have that conversation.
Right. Yeah. So what is it about EOS that you think has the potential to, or EOSIO technology has the potential to bring in like mass adoption, to bring the world in?
What you just said, that human readable addresses, those are no-brainer type of core functionality features that you want to see, right? And of course, you can do that on layer 2s and stuff with with Ethereum, but then you bring in more complexity, and I just think scaling that type of stuff just, and I could be wrong, I just don't see it doing that well. Um, and just the way the Wasm engine going that way, right, is to me being a step ahead versus the EVM route. And I know I think with the Ethereum 2.0, they're going the WebAssembly route, I believe. So that when that comes out, maybe that will keep them ahead. But I think like you look at Google, right? Google has hit critical mass, but it was at the tail end of the evolution of search engines, right? And we went through, Yahoo and Ask Jeeves and all these other ones. Alta Vista, you remember Alta Vista? So, I mean, Google kind of learned from their mistakes and even wins and improved upon them. And now we have a giant, a juggernaut. So I feel like that's the same pattern. That's the same direction we're going to see with blockchain. So yeah, that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, EOS Detroit is one of these. You guys kind of have the same problem, maybe as you might have the same problem as EOS USA, where you have EOS baked into the name, and people get a little bit confused. But EOS Detroit is a block producer on a number of blockchains, some of which actually have actively tried to disassociate themselves from EOS, because of the FUD and that kind of stuff. So what chains are you guys involved in, and what do you do over there on those chains?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say Telos first, because Telos, they got a little in their feelings last time I was on your show, and I forgot to mention Telos as one of the blockchains that we are producers on. But Telos, EOS, Wax, Proton, and File. Those are the 5. So just actively managing those. We have API nodes running on those. We've actually just invested another, I won't say the amount, but a decent amount of money to upgrade our hardware, because we're transitioning fully to bare metal. Our plan is to have that fully done by the end of this year. So we're looking to really continually add value to all of the blockchains that we're actively involved in. In addition to that, we have some ideas on how to bring services to some of these blockchains, unique services that we've never seen in this space. So we're excited, and I want to spill the beans on those endeavors at this moment. But yeah, we're actively working with those blockchains.
Yeah, so like GenerEOS, we're kind of across the board on a few different ones as well, and we like to, I don't know, I like to put words in GenerEOS's mouth and fill the void. But like I always like to point out that like different block producers actually seem to have different strengths, right? Like if you look at some of the top block producers that are out there, which is why I really like doing these BP, these BP focused ones where we can have different block producers in the meld. They're kind of working on different things, right? Like, and I always see GenerEOS as being like almost like on the social arm of things, right? Like we started the GenPool proxy, whereby we were trying to corral people around understanding what was going on. Back in the early days, we had the toolkit where people could come in and interact. We've just actually merged with Telos Germany to be over on that side as well. And now we're kind of branching out into NFTs with kind of another new arm, which you might or might not know about because it's relatively new, but kind of like an underling of ours, Dot Scarce, which is going to be looking at some NFT stuff across different chains. So that's kind of our focus. It's always been our focus. Of course, we have some pretty strong stuff on the back tech end, but we're always a lot of times looking at social, hence GenerEOS, right? Like putting the care back into blockchain, hence the symbol.
Right. So
what is it exactly that you guys would say that you're focused on? Like, are you focused on tech, infrastructure? I mean, obviously every kind of BP has all of these aspects baked in, but some of them are looking at history nodes, some of them are looking at creating wallets or infrastructure in that way. What is it that you guys are most focused on right now at this point in time
Right now,
across
it's
EOSIO?
infrastructure. Yeah, it's infrastructure for sure right now, but that's not the end goal. But infrastructure is totally our focus at the moment. We want to transfer or transition back to kind of what the original ethos that was developed by Rob, Adam, and Charlie, which was community based. And so that is something that we're looking to transition back to for sure. That's on our roadmap to get back into the swing of things. And just I'm in Detroit, right? So Detroit is one of those cities. Poverty rate is kind of high, low population within the city proper, and education, very very poor educational system. So we want to make sure that class of people aren't left behind in this transformation that we're going through. So educational programs, we're actually in the middle of, can't say who because we haven't fully locked in the deal, but we're dealing with a very big nationwide organization, nonprofit, that we're going to be teaming up with to do a lot of classes on NFT and blockchain. And so that's going to be a part of our strategy going forward, Jimmy. So, but as of right now, yes, infrastructure is where it's at.
Well, I'm thinking about coming, stateside, Canadian side, in the next year or so. Don't tell anyone, but I'll just live in Windsor and I'll come and I'll help you guys teach some classes in Detroit, right?
Windsor is right across the pond, baby.
Right.
I wear Roots. So Roots, the clothing line.
Oh man, yeah.
That's like my favorite clothing line. So people always think, because literally, for people that may not know, Detroit is literally across the river. Detroit River is Windsor. People always say, "Are you from Canada? Are you from Canada?" I'm from Detroit.
Well, I mean, you're almost cool enough to. Well, you are cool enough to be from Canada. So just to address a couple comments. Blockchain, definitely go check out Crypto Blood. He's been doing this a long time. He's been in this space doing amazing things. He's got some really good interviews, some really polished, really clean stuff on his channel. To go back I do want to address Nick's kind of point as well, because I'd like to hear a little bit more about this. Transfer to bare metal. It's a bold move. So do you want to, and then I want to come back to the education. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's a bold move. Absolutely. I mean, we'll have some cloud nodes as backups for sure. But we're actually in the middle of securing a second physical location as well. So we'll have redundancy there. I think it's just it's the right way. It takes more effort, right? It takes more attention. But ultimately, if more BPs were to go this route, I think it makes our system, our network, more anti-fragile. So it's just, we just have to take those steps and be committed to that. And I think that's the right way to go.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is beauty and variety in a sense, right? Like not having all your eggs in one basket. That's kind of goes behind it. And if it works out, I mean, you'll be maybe the only one that's doing it. I'm not sure.
Isn't EOS Nation is pretty heavy
into that too? It could be.
I believe so. They spend a lot of money on that.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, it's hard. I can't keep track of all of it. So yeah, I don't play poker. There's a reason for that, Charlie. You make an NFT, I'll support you, and that'll be about most of my money that I will give away. But at least I get something in return.
So Charlie knows about me from the Cliff High days.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Charlie's great. He's fun. Let's go back to the education thing because I like this. So one of the first articles that I ever wrote in the space was called Permaculture and Blockchain, and yeah, I didn't really know much about blockchain at the time. I learned about EOS. I had just gotten into the ICO, and Tribe had just opened up. Tribe One had just opened up. I wasn't a part of that team at that time. And I decided to write an article. And I wrote this article on permaculture and blockchain. Fast forward a few years, I had done some writing for Tribe. And Boyd brought me on board to do their Boydcast, which was audio only, interviewing different people from around the space that were using the Boyd app. And Boyd was is based off of teams where people can go in and kind of compete as teams. And one of the, not the first, but one of the first interviews that I did was with Rob of EOS Detroit. And I had a great time talking about that article and all that EOS Detroit was doing or is doing at that time. Talking about, because there's a lot of symmetry, there's a lot of similarities between what you guys were going through or are going through in Detroit and what I saw when I lived in Hawaii. Right? A lot of people think that Hawaii is this, amazing place where everyone's rich, right. Right? But it is an oasis in the sense that there are a lot of people, especially native Hawaiians, who maybe don't have the same opportunities as people who are coming. And one of the problems, it's probably, this is the one thing where it might be the opposite of Detroit. One of the problems with Hawaii is that like a lot of people come there and take pay cuts because they want to live in by the beautiful sea, right? Like, so competition for getting jobs is really difficult, right? So if you're coming in like as a base level employee, for example, right? Or you're born and raised there, it's really difficult to, sustain yourself and survive. So much so that like one of the largest Hawaiian populations right now is actually in Oregon because people can't afford to stay there anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And so they have this idea about the ohana and the family. And, back in the day, before we had supermarkets on every corner, before we had convenience stores on every corner, when all you had was a local mom and pop shop, what people used to do is they used to grow their own food and they used to grow their own vegetables and they used to, share the resources when they were available. Because of course, if you have a mango tree in your backyard, you're not going to be able to eat all the mangoes, right? So you give away some mangoes, you get some bananas in return at a different season and everything works out. It's all great. And so one of the things that I took from Hawaii was this kind of permaculture idea, right? This environmental idea, which is why I love GenerEOS so much now, because we do similar things with them. But, looking at like community gardens, looking at the ecoscape, right? The name Detroit or the city Detroit pops up a lot in those circles, right? Not only because of like the underprivileged and the bad things that have happened in Detroit, but the way that the Detroit people in general have kind of rallied around the open spaces in the community to try to like create this internalized local economy, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of urban farming, right, going on here. Yep.
And I can kind of see still to this day a symmetry in a place like Detroit. It's not that far off from, like, I'm not trying to throw any shade here. I'm just putting it real. It's not that far off from a developing economy in a non-developed country. And now I'm not saying that it's poor. I'm not saying like anything bad against the people. I'm just saying you had this economy that was full blown, this automotive economy, this economy that was based on like a world global trade that basically they pulled the plug on, and all of these people who had houses there, who were established, lost their jobs, which kind of degraded the whole system. And now you've got this.
Thanks.
Right.
Thanks, who was that? That was.
Well, I mean, at least
Clinton.
they.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Bill.
I mean, at least they stopped the TPP. That would have just made it worse. But anyway, so now what you have is the system whereby you've got all of these people who are rallying around in the community and starting to create local economies. And I think for like something like EOS, it's amazing, right? Like for something like EOSIO technology or NFTs or wax, right? Like we look at things like what Darren's doing with graffiti art. Like we know that there's a lot of artists. We know that there's a lot of really, intelligent people. You have to be intelligent to have stayed in Detroit, to just stay there and have the mindset of like what used to be, you're probably not in a very good space, right? Like if you want to stay there, you probably have to be able to adapt and become a businessman. So what I want to know is like, how does EOSIO technology play into that? Because I know a big focus of what EOS Detroit does is localized community things. A lot of these other projects are looking at it from a global perspective, but you guys are really focused in on the narrow, what's happening in Detroit, what's happening in our backyards, and how can we use this blockchain technology to essentially show and build a paradigm for the world that the rest of America or the rest of, anywhere else in the world can adopt.
Yeah, I mean, it's we got to heal where we are, our surroundings first. So that's what we want to do, is heal our surroundings, our neighborhoods. And Detroit is kind of at a point where we're trying to figure out who we are. Like as you stated, automotive is gone. That's been disrupted, moved all over the globe. You've got a lot of autonomous driving AI stuff now popping up here. So maybe that's the future. But we haven't solidified, and we're not known yet for an industry. And so there's an opportunity there, in my opinion, in our opinion. So let's try to make blockchain be that thing that Detroit is known for. So that's what we're trying to do here. But in order to do that, we have to educate the people in the city on blockchain technologies and understanding all of that, and bring talent to the city. So it's kind of the chicken and the egg, which comes first. We just gotta keep throwing darts at the wall, and one of them will hit for sure.
So, are there any like killer dApps or projects that you think you really support because of these endeavors, or other endeavors as well?
Well, I mean, personally, I know, I've had Douglas Horn on many times on my channel. I love the D store idea. That is, I think, gonna have some traction for sure. I'm excited to see that manifest and mature. So D store is definitely one of those things that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting things that are coming, out of Telos. Telos kind of, like you said, they kind of became the black sheep of the EOS community in a way, and now they've kind of branched out, right? But
Yeah.
a lot of the block producers like yourselves who have been over there are pretty, what's your favorite thing about Telos? Let me ask you that.
Well, I would say what they're attempting to do with governance, I think, is a better. I like also the way that they have, as does Wax, with the free accounts. Having that, we talked about that at the beginning. Having the onboarding experience, that barrier to entry, be as low as possible, is the only way we're going to see growth, right? And so I'm hoping that EOS gets to that point. That's what's needed. But I like how they took that initiative to have that fund there to basically fund any new accounts that are created. And I know that's going to have to transition out at some point, but at least take that leap of faith initially. Have that capital there to onboard people and figure out the rest as the ecosystem grows. So I really like that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you said that, because I totally kind of forgot about their worker proposal fund that they kept and EOS kind of threw away. But one of the things that I personally like about Telos, despite all the negativity that they sometimes get, they actually got to the point where they were just like tired of waiting for other people to come into EOS, and they just went out and they branched out and they found their own links to the broader crypto space. So I think that's really commendable, all the stuff that they started porting in from Ethereum and things like that. So
Right. Yep, the Telos EVM port. I think that was great. Yeah, I just want to see. I want to see that type of stuff being more actively done on EOS. And so, shoot, man. I mean, we're gonna have to make it happen. At some point.
well,
Especially because
yeah.
right now all of my devs are literally on working on our startup facings, which is NFT specific. based subsidiary that we started a couple of months ago. So I'm kind of low on human capital right now in that regard. But again, that's, we're gonna focus on many, unique ideas and things that we have on the dApp side of things, and I'm hoping Q4 of this year.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what happens. Like, there's some chatter in the comments that, like, things are going to change. Things are going to change. I think that they will. For EOS, I'm not so sure. Definitely for EOS, from I think the bigger players, I think it will. But I think where you're going to see more change and more adoption actually is maybe the EOSIO, other chains. So what about like EOSIO technology adoption excites you the most? Like what kind of things that like that can bring to the world excites you the most? Sorry, that was a really bad lead, but I kind of wanted to leave it open for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. There's so many applications that we can see leverage with EOSIO, with its low, block times, and I'm really excited about, at least on EOS, when they get the parallel stuff going. I think that's going to open up the bandwidth and allow even more throughput. So I'm just excited to see what people want to build, and really I want to see people stop being, when I say people, the community in general, crypto community in general, stop being so focused on Ethereum being the end all be all, and look at other blockchains, because there's a lot that they could do if they weren't so focused on protecting their bags, right? That's a big component of it. A lot of the money that a lot of the wealth that was created from the early days in Bitcoin and some of these other altcoins really spilled over into Ethereum, and it's still there. And those gatekeepers and people, organizations they want to protect their bag. So at some point that's going to have to change. It's going to be a more necessity than, protecting bags. And when that pendulum swings, you'll see, I think, a really fast acceleration into chains like that use EOSIO.
Yeah, and I think like you bring up a really good point. Like when you look at things like DeFi, especially, I think, and how it runs on Ethereum, to me, it doesn't make any sense at all, right? Because you are in the ability to be able to pay extra funds to be able to basically front run anything that's in the queue,
Right.
to be able to get your transaction process. Like, how does this translates really well from an old world perspective, where you have big money players that are taking advantage of weaker players, but it doesn't translate very well for this kind of open free market, economy where everyone comes in equal. Now, I'm not saying, okay, everyone should just get $1 million of crypto. Obviously, I mean, it would be nice. And if I had my way, maybe I would say that. But what I'm saying is that like everyone should be able to walk in and invest $1 into crypto and have the same chance of a return as any other person, right? And I think that's where I'd like to see it personally, right? Like I'd like to see someone in the middle of Africa be able to come in with a month's salary, which might be $1, and invest it and be able to double that within 2 or 3 years. And I'd like to see that same opportunity for someone in the US, right? And I think that's really fair to me. Whereas like paying to mint something on Ethereum, or paying to do DeFi, or worrying about having your transaction, front run and losing everything in Ethereum is a real risk to me. So I think the way that the way that EOSIO technology is structured, where everything goes into the queue and that's it, you don't get to pay more to have it to have it done quickly. That's a real benefit to me. What do you think are some of the other benefits that like EOSIO technology might have over Ethereum or some of these older blockchains, as you said?
I mean, the parallelization, that once that's fully implemented, I think that's going to be great. Again, it increases bandwidth, allows more transactions. I mean, we're at what, half-second block times now. I think we can get probably a little bit lower than that at some point in the near future. I just think we're primed for the real growth. We're in that position. We're ready. It's like opportunity meets preparation. We're just looking for the opportunity. We're prepared in many regards. We got a lot to work on for sure, but if you just take a look at it, I mean, if tomorrow, let's say a billion new users come to crypto, to blockchain, and they want to use this technology, we know Bitcoin's going to just freeze up. We know Ethereum is going to just freeze up today. We're not talking about what's going to happen in the future and we got this coming and all that. I'm saying today, right now, I just feel like, we would have a better opportunity to figure out how to scale those individuals, those new groups, those new user groups, than any other blockchain at this point. It will come with challenges, because we have challenges now and bottlenecks now. You take a look at Wax, but I just feel like we're in that position to tackle it and scale it faster.
Yeah, I can't argue with that at all. I think, and it's interesting because people always complain about EOS being centralized, right, or EOS being under this cartel, which I personally don't really believe. I actually think like some blockchains like Bitcoin are more centralized than EOS personally. But then you look at blockchains like Wax, which is almost completely centralized, or Ultra, which from what I can see is like 100% centralized, because they chose the block producers that they want running on it, and nobody seems to have problems with it. So I think it depends on the application and what you're doing for it. I want to go back to something that we talked about last Thursday and get your take on this, because we learned some new information last week. In the Eden on EOS Open podcast. So we were talking about Eden becoming a block producer, and I don't know if you tuned into what Chris and Joshua and Dominic did on their last podcast. But basically, what they said is that there might have been a misunderstanding about Eden actually being a block producer. I think I got this right. I think what they stated was that like what they were going to do was they were going to set up a block producer which would allocate funds to Eden. So it's a little bit different than just saying like Eden is becoming a block producer in itself.
Okay. That sounds a little bit better. I had my reservations on the show. No one wanted to speak though at first. It was like crickets when you asked the questions. Everyone was like. And then I think Michael from EOS USA, made the first comment, and I followed, but he was for it. I was like, nah, I don't know about that if that's the case,
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to allocate votes, if you're going to allocate funds from a private block producer to Eden, then that's 100%. You're right? Like you can allocate them back to the community. You can pretty much do whatever you want with them. I mean, you can cash it out and bury it under a pillow. If people are voting for you, right, and you're getting those funds, you can do whatever you want. But yeah, like, so I guess my question is like, with EOS Detroit, what's your take on, because I know you talked about, I think there's an interesting parallel in thought behind Crypto Blood's brain here, because on the one side, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. I'm actually kind of perplexed myself on how it all works out. Sure. But on one side, like you're looking at Dan and his vision and this governance model, and on another side, you're looking at like the potential of Eden on EOS to be able to carry it out. But then as a block producer, you're kind of like, well, we're in it to create and develop the technology, and we work really hard to get those votes. Mm-hmm. And somebody just coming in and throwing another one of Dan's ideas, like a bunch of funds so that they can get money to like get like, and I mean, I guess the intent is that like once that money comes into Eden, whoever wins that Eden election will be able to essentially use those funds to develop, a better ecosystem or something like that. But when we look at all of the hard work that all of these block producers have been putting in, day and night, for the last 3-4 years, and not necessarily getting the credit that they deserve, and not seeking it either. And then you have a situation like what we saw with Adriana, where basically she just went full rogue, and she's like, no, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm going my own way, right? Like, where does that kind of balance out between the governance, the block producer, and the capitalization of the whole endeavor?
Yeah, there has to be a balance, and it's very delicate. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a zero-sum game in this BP world, because if Eden comes in the scenario that we thought was the case last week, then they're taking votes away from someone else, you know? And it's like, is that the proper way to allocate resources on the chain? You know, I don't know, you know. That was my concern with it. But hearing this be the case, kind of almost a proxy situation, maybe that is better, maybe not. I need to see how it all pans out, you know. It's not direct in in our faces now, but maybe the outcome is the same.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I got inducted. I probably will sit on the sidelines for this one because I'm pretty busy doing other things, my own stuff. I'll support the people who I think have a good idea. I have a couple ideas of my own, but I like the idea of, in a way, like part of these funds. So our platform is basically, we want to, Corey and I had this idea, if we were going to do something with Eden, what we would do is we would try to support like the DAO aspect of it, right? Like we would try to support somebody building an app that could be a plug and play into like basically the Uplift world or any other platform that would enable for people to have a voice and for people to interact with how going forward, how the platform would design, and world domination. Those were our two platform things, right? So on the world domination part, right? Like I would probably like to see, another whole system whereby there was a proxy built in. If I was in charge of all of these funds, whereby you could allocate those to some of the BPs that are working hard and showing up. And so I'm going to get myself into trouble here, but you have BPs like Binance who, they collect rewards and they do stuff, but in my opinion, they're not really always on top of really getting tokens in our ecosystem listed over there. And I kind of feel like that should be a thing that they do.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you, Jimmy. I definitely do.
You're keeping yourself out of trouble, I guess.
I'm gonna be political on that one.
Fair enough.
If it was just crypto blood, I would give it to you raw. But I'm actually Jerry Rucker from EOS Detroit as well.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. So you basically, you've taken over the face of EOS Detroit. How have you found that? Like give us a little bit of a backstory. You were working alongside Rob for the longest time, and Rob stepped away, not out of the mix, but he stepped away into something else that he was working on that I think will be equally exciting. We want to get him on the show and talk to him about that at some point.
Got to get Rob on. He stepped over to head Facings.io. We're doing some stuff for with Crypto Rider, of course. We did they did their first in-house release, which was Dark Pinup. Did very well, sold out. That was a very different and unique, refreshing take on NFTs, to me at least. They got some flack on about that. I'm like, come on, man, you can't please everyone, Jimmy. You just can't please everyone.
I loved it personally. I thought it was great. Like the wax needs more of this, right? Like,
yes. It was done right. But yeah, so he's over there. Lars is over there. We got Charlie in the mix. He's the CTO for Facings. So they're going hard trying to get these new projects and releases out. So very excited about that whole initiative. But yeah, for me, I came in. So I've known Rob for maybe three years or so. Just in the scene, Detroit crypto scene. Was introduced to him by my co-founder in my tech startup that we both founded a few years ago, and he introduced me to Rob, and we were just talking. Back then, Steemit was going crazy, so we were sitting on lots of money, and life was good. But yeah, just kept in touch. I actually reached out to EOS Detroit to have. I was good friends with Max Kaiser. So Max Kaiser wanted to come to Detroit. He's like, yo, can you host me and Stacy? I'm like, absolutely. Well, you didn't even have to ask. So I had Stacy and Max Kaiser come into the city and had EOS Detroit help with that whole event. And we kept in touch ever since then, you know, and they were finally at a position where they were ready to bring in more talent, and you know, they reached out to me. I said, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, I would love to come in and help, you know, take EOS Detroit to the next level. And so that's where we are right now. I came in as VP of marketing, but when we decided to create facings and kind of spin that out of EOS Detroit into its own company, I moved into the I wanted to go with the managing director title, not CEO. I don't CEOs a little weird to me, but yeah.
I like it.
So
That's
yeah, I'm
awesome.
excited, man. We're having a great time with the reorg, and we're kind of just getting going, man. It takes a lot to reorg a whole company and take three, really more than three. I mean, you had Rob, Charlie, and Adam is kind of toggling back and forth, but Rob and Charlie are full time in facings. Lars is over in facings now, so it's and then we got a lot of our dev people over there helping out with some of these launches. So it's been a slow start for us to kind of get an agenda together, right? But yeah, that was one of the first things that I wanted to do was rebrand our site, and that kind of represents us fully, man. I haven't seen a BP site that looks like this yet.
No, so I first interviewed Rob on our channel like maybe the end of last year, and I
Okay.
remember like going on to the old site and looking at it, and then I was like, oh, I got to put that in the links below, and I came on here and I was just like, whoa, what's going on here? This is great, like and yeah, so you guys like totally rebranded this, like it looks awesome. I think
Thank you.
it's yeah, it's really really well done. I mean, you've got everything up here, the you know, the blogs back, I guess,
Yeah.
which you guys were kind of taking a bit of a backseat on for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, all of the information here, but I just love that truck. I mean, like it's just great.
Yeah, we call it the
So,
battle bus. That's the battle bus. Yep.
it's like
So,
straight out of the streets of Detroit.
yep,
You know,
yep.
headed towards, you know, Mad Maxville.
Exactly. You got it. We
I
did a
love
good job. You got the concept
it.
immediately. So, yeah, that's us, man. We're you know, battle is from the blockchain, and that's what it should be. Like, we're trying to change the structure of government, structure of finance. But it's going to be a battle, Jimmy. It's going to be a battle. It's not going to come easy if done the right way. And so that's what we're about.
Well, this is one of the things that I like about EOS. You know, because I do have friends in the space who, you know, they make jokes, and now it's to the point with some friends that we don't even talk about it because it's just like we get heated and it's not worth it, right? So they make jokes, you know, like my daughter, they'll say like, you know, she'd be a lot happier if you were over here playing in this space, and like, but one of the things that I have to put out there, right, is that like the block producers in general, the people that I know as BPs in general. A lot of you guys work really closely with 3 or 4 other block producers, right? It's not that you're banning the rest, but there's a lot of things that are happening in the EOS space where 2 or 3 block producers will get together and they'll build something amazing, right? And so like seeing that on the background, like the ability for all of these different block producers to come together and you know, create something that has a higher value, I think to me is the most impressive part about EOS. So I'm really excited to see what you guys bring. I'm really excited to see like how you guys work with other block producers in the community, where all that
Yeah,
stuff comes from.
that's an initiative for 2022 for sure. To really start, because there are a few relationships that Rob has built that, you know, the torch needs to be handed over so we can continue those relationships. I mean, I've had EOS Nation on my channel prior to being with EOS Detroit, so I definitely want to foster that relationship. Um, so yeah, we've got a couple of BPs that we're pretty aligned with.
Yeah, and I like from the GenerEOS side, I know that we really appreciate, and we have for a really long time, what some of our North American counterparts have brought to the space, right? Like the things that you guys watching Michael EOS USA, watching EOS Detroit, from the early days, and how hard you guys have worked just to support the whole ecosystem is really amazing, right? And then EOS Nation as well, amazing, right? Like a great Canadian block producer. That sounded weird when I said it, but it kind of works. It's like west of the Rockies, not quite, but yeah, like right, like there's a lot of really cool things that I think are going to come out of just the people that I personally know. So, but yeah, I guess we'll probably wrap this up soon. I just want to do this with you every day to be, if I'm honest about it, like just I want to have you on our channel when you can be Crypto Blood instead of Jerry Rucker, because there's a whole other side to this story that I think people need to hear. Before we go though, Charlie, you've been holding out on me. I didn't know you were over there at Facings. I mean, like you come and watch. You need to be on the channel too, I guess, as the CTO. My final question for you though, Jerry, is if you could ask yourself one question, any one question to end this interview today, what would that be? And of course, what would the answer be?
Oh my God, I don't even know, man. I saw that on your list and I didn't even answer it. Now it's coming back to haunt me. I should have been more prepared, Jimmy. Put me on the spot, man. I don't know. One thing I always get asked. This is one I get asked. I used to get asked a lot. Are you a real Crip or a Blood? The answer is no. The name is just it's a double entendre. Like it's Crypto Blood. That's what it is. I'm not a Blood. I'm not a Crip. There you go. That's my question and answer.
I mean, I'm from Asia, and the yin yang thing is a thing, right? And what do we do in this space other than build and entendres are maybe the best representation about that, right? So. Yeah, man. I really enjoyed this. I love getting the background details. I love that you were actually the first BP guest on GenPool.io. For all of you out there, if you're wondering what the background is, the background on the stream is the GenerEOS plot in the up-off world. So please come and check that out. There's GenerEOS Mountain. There's the Gratitude Monument.
You gotta have me come back on. I want to talk about our response to B1's proposal as well. We can
do that now if you want. I mean, we got time.
I mean, it may be a little lengthy. Let's save it for another episode, man. We got to drag them out. Can't get everything in one.
All right, like we can do that. I mean, it'll be funny because, like I said, M Blue, we had to bring them back the next week to finish up. Because we ran out of time. So maybe sometime this month, before the end of the month,
that's a bet.
You can come back and we can talk about the B1 response.
Sure. Yep. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And we will see you guys all next time on whoever we happen to have here for the GenPool Spotlight. Usually we try to do these once a month. So thank you all. And you all take care until that time again.
Peace.